Right, hi guys, it's Luton here. I'm back for Below the Line. Now, this is a series I have not done for 6 months now, because largely busyness, largely there were different things going on, also largely because I took a break from one of the main games which I talk about, which is of course Battlefield. Now, going full time, this is going to give me a hell of a lot more opportunity to talk not just about this, but about a variety of different games and about industry issues. And the thing that I'm always interested in is your opinions, because that's what we do with YouTube. People make comments, people interact, people talk about things. Now, what I try to do with Below the Line is I look at your comments and then I respond to those comments. Something which I think you would agree is actually fairly rare by the most part for most YouTube producers. And also, a lot of the time, I see people... some channels that I watch, and they're not all gaming related, but some channels, and they say, don't look at the comments, never read the comments, just, I think that is fundamentally a big mistake, just ignoring comments that people make good comments, and this is something I always said about with my YouTube channel, is that, I always had a really good audience, really good community of people discussing and commenting, and it gives people an opportunity to get involved and actually have their opinions shared, and it makes people realize, like, hey, actually, LT does actually read these comments, he does actually listen, he does actually see what we're saying, so I would encourage you guys on all of my videos, make comments, I check them out, and then, week to week, I'm going to try and get an episode of Below the Line together, so you'll be having some of the best comments anyway that I think highlighted, and best doesn't necessarily mean most well written, biggest, it just means best comments, most pertinent comment, and people that I think make a good point, and again, it doesn't always have to be people that agree with me either. I am fair, and I look at comments people make which disagree with my point of view. It's about having a discussion. Now, there have been a lot of really interesting comments in the past few weeks, and let's get started off with this one. Demon Turtle 89. Now, he said, I'm very skeptical about EA stockholders making the overall decisions, and when they see dollars for copies sold and DLC sales, I doubt they will change. Now, I picked this comment because, to me, I was like, bloody hell, that is really cynical. But, let's be real, I'm a very cynical person as well. 100% am I a cynical person, and sometimes too much. And I think sometimes you have to just be like, look, okay, it's good to be cynical because then you have a genuine awareness, and you have a kind of, try to keep your feet on the ground. That's something I've always said. Don't let yourself get overhyped. Keep your feet, on the ground, keep real about stuff. But at the same time, you can go too far the other way, and you can end up being sort of needlessly cynical about things. And, look, here's the thing. At the end of the day, yes, EA are a company, and they want to make money, just like any other company. At the same time, what you have to understand is that whilst that is true, people like shareholders, for example, they don't literally phone up and say, hey, I've seen X thing going on, so I would like... Most shareholders, for example, they don't really keep tabs on this kind of thing. If you're a shareholder, it's like an investment, and then you're investing in those people to make those decisions and just get on with it, So it's not like the evil shareholders are like, I want to change this in Battlefield. No, that's not how it works, okay? However, with that said, at the same time, it has got to be said that sales are going to be important for any company. At the end of the day, that is what you're doing as a business. But there's a fine line because, companies are not stupid. EA isn't a stupid company. They understand that if they were to go full on, 1980s business model, and just kind of screw people over, and it's all about the cash and there's nothing else going on there. People are not blind. People do see through this, as much as that might be hard to believe. A community and an audience, they're not totally stupid. They can read between the lines to a degree. However, what I would definitely agree on is that the game itself, and I have said this, and this is part of what I've said to David Serlin when I've communicated to him, but also what I've tweeted at people, and people that I know that work for EA and stuff. I'm very kind of forthright about my opinions, and I don't mind telling people what I think. If that means that they don't speak to me after that point, or they don't communicate with me more than they communicate with other people, to me that just it confirms my suspicions about things. Do you know what I mean? So I don't mind putting my opinions out there. So I very happily will say, look, this, Battlefield as a series is way more about marketing and getting those season passes sold and getting that DLC sold ahead of release. And part of that is the aesthetic and the style and the format of the game. It's about presenting a package where people will be like, wow, this is so, it's about that. Hype, I often feel like, is not necessarily the most accurate description, but it is kind of hype. It's about kind of community engagement from that first stage. It's about getting people on board with your title from day one. But as I've said about with Hardline and also with Battlefront, my biggest issue with that is that they push and they push and they push season passes and pre-orders. And in doing that, they are sort of committing people and getting people on board on day one, instead of what people should be doing is saying like, look, we've known there've been some issues, let's see how this goes. Because what we're seeing now is a trend. This is a trend we saw in Hardline, we saw it in Star Wars Battlefront, and now we've seen it in Battlefield 1, a trend of maximum sales, maximum community engagement at the beginning, and then a very quick drop-off, okay? And, I've seen other community members try to say this is not so. When I say community members, other YouTube producers, sort of saying like, no, it's fine. It's not fine. It's not fine at all, and it's not been fine for a long time. And you start to see that now. Battlefield definitely didn't have as much of a drop-off as Star Wars Battlefront. I think there's obvious reasons for that, because, Battlefield, for a large part, was a more engaging game than Star Wars Battlefront was. It also conforms to a more traditional style of FPS than Battlefront did, and so I think people engage with this game a lot better. But nonetheless, the issues are still there. The drop-off is still there. So it's cynical to assume that EA are solely out for the money, but there are definitely markers there that they seem to be leaning more towards getting copies shifted early on than they do about long-term community engagement. And to be fair, again, if you look at it from a cold hard business perspective, from their point of view, it makes sense, because again, if you have a huge community playing this game on and on and on for like years and years, that community doesn't necessarily translate into the newer titles. Maybe they'll just stick with this game, maybe they won't. It's kind of like the old it's kind of like with the old products. You want to make them well, but you don't want to make them too well, because if you make them too well, people don't buy your new products. So then you come back to just that standard consumer market, and that's just, when you come back to it, it is what it is, and there's no getting away from it. It just is what it is. Right, feeling concerned now that I spent 7 minutes talking about that first comment. Let's get into this one. So Scriptflex says, Luton, do you think DICE should get rid of KD and substitute it with win-loss, which is more team-orientated? My reason for this question is because people focus so much on their KD that it makes people not want to push for objectives and only going for kills. I'm guilty of this in BF4. If DICE glorify win-loss ratio and add it to community events like they're doing with the Zodiac dog tags, do you think it would be a positive or negative impact on the community? I don't agree that they should get rid of KD. I think that it should be not so prominent on the scoreboard, but I don't believe they should get rid of it. At the end of the day, if you're getting kills and you're doing well, you are still a positive contribution to your team. And the thing is that there's a difference between people getting obsessed with KD and people being, just a positive contribution to a team. So, for example, like very often when I'm hosting an event, I look down the list and I look at people's KD to judge, like, okay, how well are they getting on in this round? Because if you're going round to round constantly negative, then, you're not contributing, you're actually being a detriment to the team. So KD does actually assist in looking at like how well someone has done. At the same time, if someone's going like 40-0, they're having a really strong contribution, but then how much are they contributing to the objective in terms of capping the objective? Well, there's different ways of looking at that. If they're getting a really strong KD, that means they are having an inhibiting effect on the enemy team. It means that the other players then should potentially, or theoretically, have an ability to get onto that objective more successfully. So KD is not like just the negative that I think often it gets associated with now. I think it's actually become very in fashion to be like KD, get rid of KD, don't put KD on the scoreboard, don't have KD. It's like, look, I said for the longest time that I don't want to see KD on the scoreboard, or that it's less prominent. I'm fine with that. But like I say, it is a factor. I think it should be less prominent on the scoreboard, not just get rid of it completely. And, at the end of the day, if you are really strong at getting the kills, but the problem is more when you see people, they have an opportunity to make a move and don't. They have an opportunity to get out there and don't. They sit because they're just like, they're trying to pad it out. And it's more that. It's more like when you see that in action. And I actually think that's less caused literally by the KD, and it's more caused just by a shift in the way that communities play the games. But it's been an issue forever. What's the solution to it? It's so difficult to say, isn't it? I mean, like, what can you do to really sort of make people think differently? All you could really do is to have a positive community environment where people try to encourage the aspect of kind of working together as a team and not thinking solely about yourself, And getting away from that is things like, for example, just changing up some of the mechanics in terms of the way you spawn in, making yourself more reliant on other people. But again, there's different schools of thought on that. Some people don't want that. Some people want to have almost like a solo game. People just want to be able to get in. People don't want to be reliant on teammates. And again, to another point, what happens if you're just constantly joining rounds and the game mechanics force you to be reliant on teammates, and those teammates are not supporting you? It could be an even worse gameplay experience, and again, what about, it comes back to, I think often YouTubers prefer sometimes to be sort of more sole reliant, because then it's easier to jump in and just get gameplay. If you can rely just on yourself and nobody else, it makes it easier. Whereas if you have to rely on other people, you need to have other people around you who know what they're doing. Otherwise, you can't get any good gameplay. You can't get any good experiences. So I don't know. It's a very difficult thing, but I definitely don't think that you should just put like a single pin in something and say this is it. It's never as easy as that. It's way more complicated. It's a grey issue. There's lots of other factors. So someone says, Sai, this was about my DICE veteran video. As a Battlefield vet, the make or break point for me was Hardline. The franchise has been in steady decline since the release of BF4. The changes DICE have made to improve the game have been purely cosmetic, an obvious and poorly executed attempt to lure players away from other titles like COD, GTA, Verdun. I honestly can't see that trend changing anytime soon, regardless of how much they might claim to care about veteran players. I mainly agree with this point. I am still very skeptical about this new team play initiative. As sincere as the guys at DICE seem to be to me, I am highly wary and very cautious about it. Because one, we've seen it before where it was committed to us and it didn't happen. And two, I see this more as a reaction to the fact that this is the third game now where their community has started to hemorrhage after a few months. And I think that they are sort of going, okay, we need to try and figure out what is going on here. Now, the issue for me is that this could have happened a long time ago, but for whatever reason was decided not to happen. Now, the next thing you then want to think about is, are they being sincere about this? Are they being sincere about their reasons why they want to help? Are they doing it because they care about the community, or are they doing it because they care about their player count numbers and ultimately sales numbers? Are they doing this because they're thinking, hey, we're losing some of this core community, and we have been for many games now. If we don't do something to limit that damage, this could affect future sales. So there could be multiple factors going on, or it could just be that they care about their long-time veterans and they want to do something to improve the experience for those guys. It depends on how cynical you are, but we can't possibly know like really where they're coming from with this. But what we can do is hope to continue to engage and just see where it leads, and that's really all we can do at this stage. Right, I'm probably making a mistake by trying to pronounce this name, but I'm going to go for Jorm Soberg. He says, I think a big threat to the veteran and the more competitive crowd of Battlefield is Battlefront. Battlefront is an incredible game and all, but the first one is having the same problems Battlefield 1 is having. That problem is that the gameplay gets stale, plus it's a bit more easy to play compared to Battlefield 3, 4, Battlefield Hardline, and we're getting Battlefront 2 later on in 2017. Yeah, I agree to a large part. I think the thing is, because they tie in Battlefront, even though they're totally different games, they sort of by association tie them in with DICE and EA, the communities then kind of get inexplicably linked, and that cannot be a good thing, because Battlefront is such a casual game compared to Battlefield, and people are going to literally be like, oh my god, Luton, this guy casual. Look, it is, you just run around, blah blah blah, blast. I mean, it was just it literally was the definition of casual gameplay in Battlefront. We're just absolutely mindlessly running around, blast. Every round was the same. I hated it. I hated that game. Beautiful game, amazing, fantastic sound design, all the rest of it. But the gameplay was garbage. So the thought that community is coming in there and then springboards into Battlefield, you can't see that that's going to be a positive thing at all. Okay, Protocol always has really good comments for me. A more comprehensive look at implementing some of the mechanics already in place to influence more team play and getting people to work as a unit inherently. There has to be an incentive and almost a must to do that doesn't come across as such. He's saying it kind of has to be kind of done without people realizing they're doing it. People who play for the experience understand this more than a casual player. There's nothing wrong with a casual player, but there is something wrong when casual play style is allowed to break and surmount the core mechanics. That's something I've said for a long time. If the core mechanics are implemented in an intuitive way, it should inherently incentivize positive team play with good experience. This is something which Level Cap has said a lot as well, which is that you shouldn't have to force people to play a certain way. You should basically just design your game well, and then if the game is designed well, then people should naturally be doing it just as part of the game's mechanics without you having to do anything extra on top, right? He says some subjective examples, as in addition to things that I've mentioned, spawn beacons. This should not be a sniper kit option, but rather a squad leader too, similar to a rally point concept. An incentive for squads to stay together driven by the squad leader. Remove spawn on other squad mates, only available to SL, then other spawn off SL or rally beacon. Should also be given and not take up an equipment slot, only usable if more than 2 in a squad. 2, voice chat, squad lead to squad lead. Channel for squad leads to communicate across squads, then each squad leads push down to individual squads. Again, you're relying a lot there on people's ability to actually communicate and want to communicate, but yeah, I mean, if you did it like squad, which is what they have there, that would work, but I don't know. 3, strip lone wolves not in a squad down to a basic rifle kit, no secondary, no nades, etc. That's pretty interesting. That is something I've not seen posted before. Maybe it has been, but I haven't seen that. I love that idea, but I think that would piss people off a lot, that would drive people insane. And the last one positive from BF1, require tank crew to man and control vehicles. If you abandon it, you have a limited kit that is less effective on foot without the vehicle. He says, no, everyone want to agree, which is fine, just trying to offer some suggestions for positive discussion. Yeah, it's true. I mean, I did like that change with the vehicles as well. Regarding the spawn beacons, it's a difficult one, right? Because just having spawn and squad lead inherently suggests that the squad leader needs to know what he is doing. And that's obviously a big problem, because there's nothing to say that that person will have any more of an idea what they're doing than anybody else. So in just assuming that your squad leader knows what they're doing is assuming something which doesn't necessarily exist, which is a big problem. However, what I would like to see is, for myself, rather than permanent spawn beacons like you had with BF4 with the recons and for the longest time, drop a recon beacon down, what I prefer to see is something like what we had in Killzone 3, Killzone 2, Killzone 3, which was a tactician, which could be your squad lead in Battlefield. With the tactician, he would have a spawn grenade, and the spawn grenade was like a very colourful smoke grenade, so people could see it, and basically you chuck that grenade down, and then basically for a few minutes people can spawn off of that spawn grenade. Now that means that it gives that person an ability to flank, get around, chuck a spawn beacon down, and then get people around. It was, again, in Killzone it was called the tactician role, and that's exactly what that role was for. It took away other more offensive gadgets to give you a more logistic gadget, which was really, really helpful. And again, it stopped that kind of behavior that you see with the recons constantly, where recons will put down a spawn beacon basically for themselves, their squad, to just camp it out far, far away, so they don't have to spend a lot of time constantly getting back to wherever they go to, even when they've been killed. So having that, spawn grenade option would be an interesting mechanic that I would like to see come in there. Next up, Jason Davies. He had a few comments I'm going to go over. He said, good video. I agree with most of it, but in regards to matchmaking, this was the one I was talking about, the kind of matchmaking in Battlefield. Matchmaking versus game mechanics being the only way to improve team play, I don't fully agree, and I'll just say I feel that more and more now that the matchmaking is the biggest issue. The mechanic of skip to respawn rather than wait for a medic is a classic example that discourages teamwork and creates no real penalty for dying. I think there should be a built-in timer so you can't respawn for like 10 seconds to firstly give medics a chance, and secondly it may reduce players running off blindly and staying with their team and squad. But class restrictions still need to be implemented so players get to play all classes and set teams up correctly so everyone works together with a role. He then also went on to say that, in my opinion, the key problem stems from KD, again we're coming back to that, being shown on the scoreboard, and then linking that to snipers. New players choose snipers so they can avoid the action and be happy going 3 kills, 1 death, thinking they had a good game. The way I would solve this is introduce class restrictions or make scout sniper an unlock that you can't use until you get level 5 on assault, medic and support, so that players learn the game rather than just coming in for some casual sniping before bedtime. So let's just roll this back and go back to the first one. So talking about the team play mechanics and the skipping. Now, yeah, I agree. That would be a really good thing. So if you die, you don't just get to fast skip. You have to wait for 5 seconds or something before you can then choose to skip, and then you have to wait to redeploy or whatever. Now, the downside to that is it's strongly restricting players who know what they're doing and understand that, hey, look, there's nobody coming for me. I just need to get back into the action. On the other hand, it could make people value their life a little bit more, but then that's going to slow down the gameplay, and they don't like that. They like exciting, fast, furious gameplay in Battlefield. Now that's what they want. It used to be, I used to say that I prefer Battlefield over COD, for example, because it had slower paced gameplay where you could think about what you were doing. Well, obviously that's not the case now with Battlefield. It's fast, furious, intense action, because they know that's exciting, that plays well with the people that they're marketing the game toward, which is again the casual player. Because, you know, if you want that casual gameplay experience in terms of hopping on, when we say casual, we mean people that literally will hop on for 3 or 4 games for an evening and then jump off again. They won't sit down and play for hours and hours and hours. So what you want in that experience, you don't want to jump in for like a couple of games and not get an exciting experience, right? So they have to tailor the game towards being fast, intense action, so that you get that, you know, gameplay experience, you get those Battlefield moments. You know, they have to basically engineer that to happen, and they do that through the game mechanics and the situations that you encountered. That's why they have a lot of grenades, a lot of all this stuff, because it's like bang, bang, stuff happening all over the place, stuff. You know, they need that going on there, so if you just jump in, you get that Battlefield experience. The problem is that breaks the fundamental elements of kind of working together and battling for the objective and all this kind of stuff. It just kind of, it doesn't play out, because you're forcing those things to happen instead of just letting them naturally play out as moments which happen. I think it's actually like a fundamental misrepresentation of the Battlefield moments thing, and I've said this for the longest time, which is that back with Battlefield 4, when I actually was in Stockholm and got to speak to the guys at DICE there, and they were telling me like, oh, we've identified something which people are going to love, you know, that the Battlefield moments, you know, we're going to make this a thing. It's you know, it's only in Battlefield. There's only in Battlefield moments. Now, at the time, I thought like, wow, yeah, that's awesome. That sounds really, really good. You know, let's see that happen. But then you think about it later and you realize, no. Where they were coming from was that they want to create more of the moments happening that used to naturally occur. So the moments that used to naturally occur were exciting things which happened because of pace. You have this pace where, you know, you don't have anything happen, then you have a big exciting moment. And it's all the more exciting because there was more tension, more pace happening beforehand. But now, because the way the game has been designed to kind of create more of these moments and so on through the mechanics and all, and just the way people are pushed and marketed towards the game, that's where you get those kind of things fall apart now. Now, Jason says the key problem stems from KD ratio being shown on the scoreboard. Let me go back to this again. The problem doesn't stem from KD ratio being shown on the scoreboard. It just doesn't. Okay, this is something, like I say, that people say a lot now. It just doesn't come from that. But I do agree on his point that it would be a good thing if Sniper was not unlocked until people had got level 5 on Assault Medic support. That would be super interesting to see people play, and I wonder how that would play out with the audience. I don't know, but that's an interesting concept. Next up is Fark S. Fark always has like really good comments as well. He says, the tone of this video takes me back to early looting videos. This was some of my stuff again about team playing DICE veterans. He says that I grew to love. Nice to see the fire in the belly for BF is still there, very much. I don't think that skill-based matchmaking BF1 is a workable solution at this point in the franchise. As much as I would like to not agree with that, I kind of probably do have to agree with that. I think it's going to be super difficult to actually get that to work at this stage. He says the player base has just become too casual, a la Star Wars Battlefront, interestingly, from what I was talking about earlier. He says, didn't DICE introduce a skill ranking system in Battlelog for BF4? To this day, I have not found anyone who understood what the bloody hell it did, or even how it worked. And he just mentioned something unrelated about that video. And then also on another video, Fark, also Battlefield team play DICE stuff, he was saying, this stuff's nice to hear, even though we heard it, or this is about the team play one, even though we heard it always BF4, actions always speak louder than words, so we can only wait and see and hope it's not too late. The timing of these announcements is tinged with a bit of cynicism for me. I can't help but think that EA DICE have seen that sales of BF1 were successful, and now they're past their peak, so they can start introducing more controversial changes now they've got their money. But it also shows they aren't just taking the money and running, or using CTE as a marketing tool, which is what I was thinking when nothing from the BF4 CTE carried into BF1. He also says another solution would be to implement a competitive mode season playlist to BF1 similar to Overwatch. A ranked or ladder system would deliver the objective gameplay many of us are looking for. The more I think about it, the more sense a move like this would make. So again, I agree with that there. And again, it comes back to what we were saying before about, you know, what are they doing? They've got their money there, identifying that the game is having these dropping sales and questioning, like, why are they doing this at this point in time? Is it because they didn't want to do it before because they didn't want to piss off those new players, or are they doing it now because they've realised it's something they just got to do? Okay, Wargamer comes in and he says, firstly off, glad to see you're doing these videos again, miss the discussion it brings, and yeah, I'm glad to do that. I want to do that, not just for this, but for for Armour as well, and other games, so we'll be doing more discussive stuff from here on out, as usual. On to the main topic, ammo and medic bag balances. For me, I feel that there are quite a few things that can be done to tweak the balance, creating a better dynamic between them. One suggestion me and my Battlefield squad suggested was the following: small ammo bags. These would have an increased throw range over their current range. This would be to combat the fact that it would be suggested of giving less ammo, maybe only a magazine or two before being consumed. It would also be unable to resupply gadgets and grenades. In addition, the small ammo bag, and only the small ammo bag, will be able to be taken directly off of your teammate, similar to how it became at the end of Battlefield 4 CTE, and I think BFH as well. All in all, it's very similar to the current system, just without the natural regenerate of gadgets and grenades. Yeah, I think that'd be fine, good change. Large ammo bags, while being able to resupply multiple units to full in a large area of effect, would supply this ammo slower on a mag by mag basis than the small ammo pouch, while all still allowing the resupply of gadgets and grenades. We also toyed with the idea of having an active resupply option where you could go up to a large ammo bag, hit and hold the action button, receiving ammo at a much quicker pace as long as you continue to go through this action animation. Again, that would be interesting. That would be something along the lines of like Rainbow Six, where you actually have to go and resupply yourself. I actually kind of like that idea. So rather than standing there, you actually have to, hold down a button to actually resupply. Small medic bags, these would undergo many of the same suggested changes. Small ammo pouch, the longer throw distance, the less health healed, and being able to take them off of medics. And larger medic bags, these would undergo many of the same suggested changes. The large ammo bag, mainly the active heal option, greatly speeding up healing if they forego the option of returning fire. Okay, then we come on to the last one, which is again Wargamer again. He says, let's play devil's advocate. This was on my video Harsh Realities, where I was talking about the changing nature of the game, and again we're talking about all of that same stuff, aesthetic and all these things being more important than mechanics, matchmaking, and so on. He says, not saying it's not the right thing to do, but part of me can't see why there's a company would want to do this. That's me sort of focusing more about team play than necessarily the aesthetics. He says, at the moment Battlefield is aimed at a demographic of people that have bought this for the current gameplay experience. They saw the promo material, they got sucked in, they bought season passes, EA and DICE's job is done. They made their money on them with the battle packs, which they can lose for all I care or get seriously reworked, maybe being the tertiary business revenue. Does this mean that I think that EA and DICE don't care about their game? No, but I think their focus has become so set on becoming the next Call of Duty, pushing sales, season passes and all the other distractions to keep people from noticing and caring about the faults of the game. I think there's an element of truth to that. Does this mean I think that Battlefield's going to change? No, Battlefield is no longer a competitive FPS. I would argue, when actually was it a competitive FPS? We've never had that. Nor do I think it really has been since the smaller games of the Battlefield Bad Company era. Battlefield is now a visual gameplay experience. Is that necessarily a bad thing? No, but it makes me sad, as I love the experiences I had back in the day. I guess Battlefield just isn't my series anymore. I think that's something that fundamentally many veterans of the series can agree with. He says, not to say I don't think Battlefield 1 has added some great new mechanics and systems, it's just from the most part they seem to be cosmetic add-ons intended to distract us from a decaying and dilapidated core of the game. This is really coming back to the fundamental core of the stuff that I've been saying for a while now, which is that it's a veneer. Okay, the amazing visuals, and you can't deny, like as a designer and an artist, you can't deny that the visuals in Battlefield 1 are not simply breathtaking. Okay, they are amazing, same as they were in Star Wars Battlefront. The problem with that is that those seem to have been given a lot more attention and time than the actual mechanics of the game. Very straightforward stuff like the frickin' bayonet charges. What the fuck with that? Also, like the power-ups. What with the power-ups? What the hell is this all about? And also the things like the behemoths, okay, which, as I've said, very much like Levolution, is a gimmick designed to sell the game. So all of these things are veneers. They're gloss laid over what is a crumbling element, you see. And again, people will say, no, this is the sales, it's sales better than ever. Yeah, it's also dropping off. The community numbers are dropping off faster than ever. So you can look at a game in a very two-dimensional way and look at it just from how many core initial sales did it have, or you can look at it as what's the longevity of the game, what's the player retention for that community. And if that player retention drops off really quickly, the reason it's dropping off is because there isn't enough substance. There's not enough substance there to keep people playing the game. Now you look at something like Rainbow Six, okay, which more and more people seem to be turning to, a game which didn't start off that strong, but it seems to be gaining weight. Why is that? Because Rainbow Six requires skill. A lot of people that I know are turning to Rainbow Six over Battlefield, and the reason for that is because People want a game which is challenging. People want a game where they have to actually have some benchmark, there's some point of reference for their skill. And Battlefield doesn't have that. Battlefield is just an endless clusterfuck of people who don't know what the fuck they're doing, you know? And it might look beautiful and it might be amazing, but not only do they not encourage the core mechanics of the game in terms of people actually working together as a team and actually having strong, exciting gameplay, but they fundamentally undermine them by putting in stupid gimmicks like the behemoths, the power-up guys, and then the retarded bayonet charging, which kind of just locks you into these mechanics. Like the other day, I think it was even in this gameplay, you know, it was like I started engaging a guy, I got some shots on him, and then he obviously was like, well, I've got nothing to lose because this guy shooted me first. He knew he was going to die because I'd started engaging him first. So he just default goes for the bayonet charge, and then it locks me in, bang, and I'm dead. And it's like, what is that? It's insane. And the thing that I have the biggest issue with is, like, how do they not assess, like, who makes these decisions? Like, who comes up with this? You know, and it's just, it's being sold as a totally different product. You know, I think, you know, Wargamer Alex says it best there. He says, at the end of the day, I guess Battlefield just isn't my series anymore. And I think a lot of people are starting to feel that. I hear this so much. And it is a sad thing because, as I've said so many times, this game has the huge potential. And, you know, it's a rare thing. We've started to see other Battlefield producers, big Battlefield producers, actually coming out now and saying this. And that is a rare thing because most of the time, big Battlefield producers do not speak about the state of the game because, one, it's not in their interest to do, and two, it, you know, can fracture relationship a little bit with the company, and they want to have a good relationship with the company so that they can continue to get that access, right? So if you start to see big producers saying these things as well, and not just somebody like me who's a smaller YouTuber, and at the end of the day, I want to say this stuff, so take it or leave it, what effect it has on my relationship with DICE EA. Actually, interestingly, like I said, me coming and saying this the other day actually made, you know, a bit of contact with them, and which I haven't had for a long time, and hopefully we see things move in a different direction there. But things are changing, and I don't know, it's going to be very interesting. The next Battlefield game is going to be very interesting to see what they do with it. Are they just going to fall back and go back to what they did with this game, or are they going to go forward, take a strong lead, and actually, you know, implement some stuff that we want to see and we need to get back to? I don't know. Tell me your thoughts about this whole ongoing thing down in the comments below, guys. And Below the Line is back, so just be aware on all of my videos, I read all the comments. I'll be going through, I'll be picking up the best comments and putting them into the next episode of Below the Line. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you next time.